Hello to all of you. My name is Ieva, and today I want to share our experience, how we came to scaling QA for AI features, specifically in communications. So a bit interesting industry. I think you have all worked with it to some extent or used it to some extent. So the main question in mind is, can you trust your AI nodes? AI is a very big part of communications, and digital communication, I think, has become one of the norms today. But a little bit about the company itself. So I'm coming from company Tesla, as once mentioned, and we're 14 plus years old, so quite already a teenager there. And we are headquartered in Latvia, in Riga, but have quite a few offices in Europe. And we have more than 500 qualified engineers who are working on different and various projects, R&D, new services with various clients. Some of you can see on the bottom of the slide. But a bit about me, just to set the context a bit more. So I'm director of AI testing and competitive analysis services at Tesla. There is AI in the name, so that's what I'm working with primarily. I'm already more than 6 years in the company. Started in audio video quality assurance, so started as an engineer. And then I was very curious enough to come to the topic of today, which is AI. And somehow it all got mingled together with audio and video context. And this is what I will be talking about today. But to set the general context, especially in communications, AI has become a new norm. If you ever used, for example, a calling platform and used transcript feature, it's powered by AI. Summary, it's powered by AI. Captions are powered by AI. If you ever looked at the video on the internet, with the captions or subtitles, if they are auto-generated, they are with AI. So it's almost everywhere, and it has become a norm. It's something that we use daily, and quite a lot. I believe that those are the features that we want to use as much as possible to make quicker meeting notes, and we don't have to think about it, and everything is great. However, there is no specific golden standard how we can test these features yet. There are different evaluation frameworks. Most probably there are open source evaluation frameworks that you have heard of or you have seen on the internet, but there's no like golden standard in the industry, like this is how we should test it or look at it or how we determine that this is the best. There are metrics, but the full suite, it's not fully standardized yet. And because of it, the adaptation of those AI features usually is quicker than actually testing those features or evaluating them on how good they are. And this comes to the trust problem. And you can raise your hand, but how many of you would fully trust AI to take your notes in the meeting? Exactly. Well, quite a few hands, but most probably you would revise the notes. You wouldn't use them just as they are. So basically, in terms of the transcripts, is your name spelled correctly? Very good thing to know that your name is spelled correctly. Or for example, in the summaries, can you trust the action items in the summaries? Can you trust that AI picked up the right task for you? Good question. AI generated translation as well. So would you understand what is translated? Can you trust that you understood the full thought of the person you are talking to? And just general AI meeting assistance, can you really trust it? Can you just relax a bit and trust whatever is shown on the screen? And we are QAs. We have a QA mindset. So the idea is pretty simple. Let's test it. We need to test it. so we can trust it. And the idea is simple, but is it really? Because if we talk about communications, it's a very, very tricky topic. Because if you look at the most popular calling solutions or virtual meeting solutions, you can see that they are promoting or assuring that they have a support of more than one language, for example, more than English. They can support Lithuanian, they can support Latvian, they can support French, German, etc. So we're talking about a lot of different languages and support for them. We also are talking about different dialects in each of the languages, different accents, because maybe the person is not a native speaker. We are talking about different pronunciations, even in Latvia. If we talk Latvian, there are different ways how to talk Latvian. We have a full region that talks it in a different dialect. We have a whole region that just cuts off the endings. So it's not just simple Latvian. There are a lot of things to keep in mind. And again, it's digital communication. Environment matters. Your network might not be great. Your microphone might not be great. It might not pick up you as well. It might pick up you very well, and it can hear all of the different things that you're talking about. So everything comes together. And then we also can talk about the context of the meeting. It can be an HR meeting, QA meeting, brainstorming. It can be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour. It can have 2 participants, 16 participants, and so on. So if we talk in the traditional context, if we put all of this together, the test plan would be endless. We wouldn't see an end of it. There would be so many permutations of these things that it would be really, really hard to cover it all. So it comes with a challenge. If we really want to test it, we need to have large volume of different meetings, different audio inputs, different context, etc. So one thing, generate them with AI. The additional challenge is the synthetic language that you would hear is not really natural. You would still understand that it's AI speaking, unless you use a voice of already a spokesperson or a known person that you can get the voice to use for AI. Or you can use open source data, so open source meetings, different types of recordings, and use that, which could be also a good solution because it is already public information, so there are no security risks. But at the same time, it covers only specific context. So if that context doesn't work for you that well, then it's really hard to navigate whether it's a good solution or no in this case. Still, in the industry, I hear from the clients quite often that one of the things that is done is human revisions, which is still a big part of the whole testing process. But if there is only manual revisions of these generated documents or generated texts, it's a very expensive and long process. So imagine to review a transcript for a 16-participant 2-hour meeting about some political topic from the Congress or something like that. It would be really, really hard to read it through fully and to review that it's fully correlates with the audio that you're hearing. So the main elephant in the room for my speech today is that we suggest to implement LLM as a judge technique. It would help to scale the amount of meetings and transcripts and all of the features that we can test. But, as I will explain a bit later, it is faster. In most cases, it is cheaper, for now, at least. But you need quite a few guardrails for that. So I will be explaining that a bit later. And lastly, one of the, again, challenges is such large-scale testing creates a large scale of results. So the idea is if we use LLM as a judge method, it can create lots and lots of data points, which are really hard to aggregate and present further and put into something actionable. So idea is to structure that approach and framework already to capture most meaningful results so that analytics and other things after the analytics have happened, so that reporting is overall easier. But hey, I'm talking about using AI to test AI. I believe that there is, considering the hands earlier, the biggest question, I guess, is if we don't trust AI to fully summarize the notes in the meeting, for example, without any specific revision, why would we actually trust AI to evaluate the quality of said features? And that's a very valid question. So the idea is to build the trust not only with the product itself, but build the trust in the testing process, because we are using AI, and it isn't as structured and linear as we would hope. So there are a lot of things that we need to keep in mind. So if we talk about the testing itself, so we're testing quite a few features, including transcripts or AI translation, and also conversational AI too. And if we talk about the metrics, there is quite a lot of them on the screen. And we also always are very transparent in terms of using LLM as a judge methodology. What we usually try to explain that it never comes alone in the process that we do. Especially, for example, if you look at the first section, which is the transcript testing, there is LLM as a judge, but there is also word error rate, which is a very static metric that displays different issues with the word-by-word comparison. The only issue is that it doesn't look at the context of the transcript. It doesn't look at the thought of the transcript, at the flow of the transcript, the readability, etc. That is where LLM comes into play. So what is the foundation from our perspective to build a trustworthy evaluation using AI? So first is ground truth. If you want to know what the ground truth is, in this specific context, imagine that you have a meeting. The ground truth would be precise to the dot transcript of the set meeting. Why ground truth is very important is it creates a reference point to the AI, what the ideal scenario should look like. And then it uses that documentation further to evaluate the quality of whatever is generated next. Another thing, use AI responsibly. So we have security policies in place. We always discuss with the clients the security risks that might come if we use specific audio inputs, if we use specific products, or if we use specific tools. It's always communicated and everybody is aware of the risks that might come into play. LLM evaluations are always paired with some sort of static metric, if there is possibility to do so. So biggest, I guess, comparison would be transcripts and summaries. For transcript, there is word error rate, for example, that we can use, very static metric, very understandable numerical metric, so how many words are wrong for one or the other reason. While summaries don't have that specific structure. So there is more of a validation process rather than everything. There is no specific golden standard, so we just create the suite of metrics, have a very specific definition of each, and use LLM as a methodology with a very, very high curated validation process and very detailed insights into how the evaluation went. Hence, the human in the loop principle. So for the testing activities, there is a QA expert in the loop. We don't use LLM as a judge autonomously. So it just helps building the trust that the prompt engineering has worked, that the LLM is working in our favor rather than against it, and we can be more sure for ourselves the output is correct. Of course, some of the tools, you can see in the image there is a prettier version of the tool that helps us to understand word error rate. So the highlighted areas just showcase where the specific points in the text are just wrongly generated against the reference material. So that's one of the tools that we created to help us with the testing process. Real hardware. So in the reality, the meeting, for example, if there are 10 or 16 participants, the meeting is with 10 or 16 laptops or phones or specific other devices that the person might use. So this is one of the experiments that we had. We actually had to run a 16-person meeting. We had 16 participants join, each from their own laptop, each from their own account, to emulate that natural flow of the users, how they join the conversation in the digital communication application. We use automation for processes where we have to be precise. One of the biggest here would be the audio synchronization, because each participant has its own audio channel to have that flow of each participant in the conversation. And for that to be accurate, they need to be synchronized accordingly so that the conversation is natural. And of course, just mitigating the risks when it comes to use of AI, specifically the trust problem. So we try to mitigate as much of the risk as possible. By all means, it's not fully complete. There still are risks, of course, but they are always communicated and everybody is informed about them. So general process, as I mentioned, there might be cases where there is more than one speaker. Most probably it is. You don't wait in the call and then start a monologue. Maybe in my case right here, if I would talk to you digitally, maybe it would be the case, but generally it's two or more people in the call. So one thing that we do to create a specific input is to organize a channel for each speaker with the specific audio that they need to tell during the conversation. That's why you see there are a lot of empty spaces, a lot of maybe not so filled with the speech, maybe some spaces that are in parallel. So that all just simulates the natural conversation flow that we are striving for. And we always implement different accents, speaking styles. Again, it really depends on the project or the client that we're preparing this for. But it is very common request to have a very variable way of the conversation in terms of the agenda, accents, languages, etc. And of course, such audio is the foundation of the whole testing process. Without the well-organized audio input, the meeting might be incorrect. It might not be picked up correctly. Hence, the AI-generated output is not fully what it should be. And then when we test it, again, the output is not as trustworthy anymore. So we take a lot of time and pride in the process on how we create that audio to be suitable for the testing that we're doing. In terms of the whole call itself, it's usually automated, just to ensure automation of those pain points such as audio synchronizations. If we're testing captions, scraping the captions in a correct manner to ensure that we have the full text, even the rewrites, which is a very popular thing in the captions, and also interactions with AI during the call. It's all automated to ensure that it's a repeatable process that we can repeat with different applications, with different meetings, and we ensure that the process is as repeatable as possible, as objective as possible, and we try to eliminate human factor errors from the call itself, because it is the foundation of the AI-generated content at the end, which is the transcript summary and other documentation too. And of course, validation and quality control. So when using LLM as a judge evaluation, again, we use humans to review the output. Of course, again, we are very smart with the framework, how we do it. We don't try to review everything because it will take as much time as we saved with LLM as a judge evaluation. So we use also some different tools like word error rate tooling. This is a bit less pretty version of the tool that we're using, but it's a bit more visualized in terms of what is wrong and how wrong it is. So we use that framework, we use the tools to scan through the output and ensure that metrics correlate. So word error rate is very important in terms of the correlation. It means that if the word error rate is high, we would expect that the transcript LLM evaluation is low, meaning that there are so many incorrect words that the transcript is just not correct and not as readable. And same goes with summary. There is a very good correlation between the transcript being quite wrong and summary being wrong as well. Then also for conversational AI, for example, we are reviewing how the questions were evaluated. But even before that, we do quite a lot of preparation in terms of the prompt engineering, in terms of the system, in terms of trial testing the evaluation before we actually use it, so that the validation and quality control afterwards is like a bonus. So it just helps us to ensure the full trustworthiness of the data. But overall, it's continuous work throughout each project from beginning to the end. And then it comes to the reporting. So this is a slight example on how you might see reporting from us. So for example, on the top, you see word error rates, and on the bottom, LLM evaluation, meaning that there is a specific score for the transcript, for example, in this case. And this is the overall score. Usually it can be broken down into different parameters. And then there is explanation why that score was given. The explanation also is provided by LLM, but that's one of the things that we really, really check in terms of the validation, because we need that, I guess, making sure that the explanation matches the score, because explanations are the ones that give the biggest context in terms of the why specific score is low or high. And you can see also in the graphs, it is the same audio samples in the same order. So you can see that high word error rate really, really correlates with the quality of the transcript afterwards as well. So this was the testing. And we actually had a success story with collaboration with Zoom, where we first implemented that approach, and we continuously collaborate to improve it. And also there are public reports on that, which is very good to see how we have evolved. There is one for year 24, and then for the last year as well. And this just shows that we have built the trust with the client as well in terms of that approach. So we have proved that with the right framework, the LLM as a judge evaluation can work. And we also had these 2 workflows, and after a year, we actually saw improvements. So we tweaked the framework a little bit to be adjusted to the newest versions, of course. But overall, we saw that some of the data that we did previously were used to actually improve the product, and we saw that improvement in the results as well. So, what are the general concerns? Again, the same question I previously mentioned. So if we cannot trust AI output, how can we trust that it will test the output? One of the things which is very crucial is the ground truth, to have that perfect reference. It takes a bit of time to create, but ultimately you create only one such ground truth, and then you can evaluate 1,000 meetings in one day rather than 2 or 3. So ground truth is key so that LLM has a reference point for the evaluation. LLM gives a full reasoning for the score, for example. How do we actually spot the errors in the reasoning? Well, one of the things, as I mentioned, we already start working on the prompt engineering and trial testing before we do the actual testing. So we work with AI even before we start the full project. And because of it, we already know the expected way on how the explanation and reasoning will come from LLM based on different metrics. And then we can already spot whether specific errors can be there. So the preparation here is key, and having a structured and systematic way on how to prepare the evaluation itself will greatly help afterwards too. And LLM evaluating LLM content. We'll just say, oh, it's good. Especially if the same LLM evaluates themselves, which creates LLM bias. So the idea is to use different large language models than being tested, if we know which one is used in the product that we're testing. Or if it's not possible, just do evaluation on different available large language models and have, it multiplies the data points, but with our structure, it just gives a bit more clarity. Usually, they are correlated, so there's not much difference between using Claude, for example, or Gemini. But in some cases, we have seen bias. We have seen that one specific LLM creates a bias and says, this is great content, when in reality, all others said that it's like only 20 or 30% out of 100 in terms of the quality measurement. So that's something to just keep in mind and ensure that you're using different kinds and see where the data goes. And models change. They do change quite frequently. It's something that is very evolving, like every single day. So what we do about that is we try to mitigate that as much as possible. So the evaluation itself happens in like hours or even maybe a day or two. So the biggest work is the preparation and after work, because we cannot guarantee that there is no update to the model next day or next 2 days. And we have seen how such updates can actually make the evaluation different. And so we are very proactive and looking if there are any updates. We try to react to them as quickly as possible. So make conclusions. Ground truth is foundation for us. I think if we use ground truth, we can trust more that large language model will give trustworthy results in the end, because it has like that ideal structure in place. It scales evaluation, so we can evaluate quite a lot in very short time. But I think at least right now, we need to have that thoughtful preparation and validation process afterwards so that we can fully trust it. Human oversight is just additional bonus to have, like human in the loop, that expert checks the evaluation and can give some opinions on maybe where it doesn't go well. In our cases, usually the experts come from the client company itself, so I don't know, UX researcher or specific data analyst, so we're collaborating with them, or it's our own QA experts that do that. And of course, AI is moving fast, and we know it, so we try to move faster. Thank you very much. A bit longer, I know.
It's fine, it's fine. So I know previously, during previous talks, you were looking into Slido and worrying about questions and you know.
Yeah.
So try to guess how many questions you received.
It cannot be 0.
No, no, no.
It cannot be
It,
like
it,
100.
it's 10. It's 10. It's not a lot,
Oh,
but
thank God.
as
Thank
far
you.
as I read through, it's genuinely curious ones.
Oh, okay.
So, in your opinion, what is the definition of well-tested AI chatbot? Can it be defined at all?
Ooh, ooh. I think all it comes down to is the purpose of the AI chatbot. If we talk about a very generalized chatbot, I think it's really, really hard to test everything. It comes to, again, QA mindset, understanding the edge cases, understanding what could go wrong, what questions could go wrong, what people would actually question. A lot of that information comes from client statistics, so what the people are actually asking about, and then we focus on the most popular areas. In terms of the communication, we usually structure the questions by expected questions, unexpected questions. So in a meeting, if you use a chatbot, you might ask, how many times my name was mentioned? I don't know, you went somewhere else and you need to understand how much you were needed in the conversation. That would be something that is expected. But when you talk about QA in the meeting and then you ask, where is my cat? Well, AI will stumble and like, I don't know. Should I know that? So there are different types of questions, and I think first the question is what is the purpose of the AI chatbot, and the second question is what is the key area for that specific time that the client wants to test, and then we can move forward because it would really be hard to capture it all.
You mentioned in the meeting, so imagine in a meeting you have heated discussions and people talking over each other. So you know, that race condition scenario. So how the transcript looks like in that case, how you test that?
Well, the transcript has usually the timestamp, the name, and whatever is spoken. If the AI is very sensitive and can pick up that the two people are speaking, the highest quality that you can get is that just timestamp of the next speaker is while the previous speaker is still talking. So it just picks up the right interruption at the right time. In most cases, it's the time, the name, then there is, I don't know, my speech, for example, and then somebody in the audience, something like, no, I have a question, and then it's in the middle of the speech. Who said that? Why it was said? No idea. So it's the usual case, how it looks like, yeah. And then we just say to the client, like, hey, you need to work on that, sorry.
All right. What about sarcasm, irony, and other emotions? How you handle not only correctness, but the whole message, like emotional background as well?
It's a very, very good question. And I think in our testing process, it is a bit systematic. So it's really hard to have a specific emotional testing. There are transcripts I have seen in development that somewhat try to capture the tone, and then they give like the tone of the meeting. So for example, you create a transcript, we had an HR meeting about, I don't know, promotion, and they will say the tone was positive. So there are some of these cases, but we don't have it in the structure yet. I think AI is now becoming more and more sensitive to also the tone, and I think it's something that in the near future would be in the framework fully as well.
All right, and the last question that's really popular in the list is, would you trust AI to create test cases?
For what? I think the I think the product under test is one of the key things to understand before you use AI. Maybe if we talk about the test cases that should cover like basic functions or specific UI interactions, and we can be quite specific in explaining what we wanted to create, then yes. When there are a lot of variables, like I described in the communications industry, the languages, the accents, etc., well, we can chat about that afterwards. Maybe not so much, maybe not so much.
All right, all right. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
accepting the challenge.